I wanted to talk to you about the kind of story of lastminute.com, but there was one particular nugget when Brent Hoberman first proposed the idea to you. You didn't actually think it was a particularly good one.
Do you know what? I know he tells the story, and I can't remember. He tells a story that I was rather dismissive of the idea. I think what I remember is that Brent had invented lastminute.com, like all great new products and services, based on a deep need of his own. He would spend time late in a Friday night in his office calling, cat's got strong views, calling 55 different hotels, 45 different restaurants, trying to work out his social life for the weekend. It was an effing nightmare for Brent. So that's why he was so compelled by the notion of what the internet could do to make his life easier.
One of the things that stood out for Last Minute was the kind of incredible PR machine and branding. We were talking about just beforehand about how you took some of the first advertising spaces on London buses.
I mean, it's kind of unbelievably more complicated now, but also somehow there's a way more opportunity. People wrote about our flights that were £99 to New York. I could have kissed Haldor Halldorson from Iceland Air, who gave us the ticket price of £99 to New York, because that became a story and it wrote itself, right? People wanted to write about the fact that you could get to New York for £99. The work was done by the product itself, but in the end, people buy products from stories. That's what I really believe. Clearly that's Steve Jobs' great insight as well. Those famous Apple ads, we didn't even mention a computer. Put it on a bus, put it on Twitter, it doesn't matter. The point is that you have found that connection that you can make with your end user.
One of the most striking points of the Last Minute story, you IPO'd, and I think the price almost touched 5.50 at one point, and then it dropped all the way to 20p and
19p.
90.
And I know that very well because this was a different time, wasn't it? I wouldn't be able to get away with this now. I remember saying, don't worry, guys, I'm so confident that we're reaching the floor that if it gets below 15p, I'm going to run naked around the office thinking there's no way this is going to happen. And it got closer and closer. I was like, oh my God, what have I done? I said I'm going to do.
Yeah, I can imagine that. But put even more pressure on yourself, regard.
Help.
So do you think the future is more generalist or specialist then?
A very good question. I used to feel very sort of insecure and anxious about not being an expert. And I hated that question. So what do you do now? People know about Last Minute, what do you know? And I'd sound like a complete twat, however I expressed it, because I'm trying to do all these different things and I would really not know how to make them into an interesting package with a bow on the top. But increasingly, I think that, if that's what your brain is like, or that's how your life has ended up, it could be a superpower to channel that generalization. So I think the world belongs to both without judging your question. I do believe in experts. I think experts are fundamental. But for me personally, I think if you tend towards being a generalist, whereas it used to make me nervous, it can actually be a strength.
But Twitter is definitely the place where politicians and a lot of the news happens. What are your thoughts on that?
Twitter is small, right? Compared to Facebook or pretty much any other platform, YouTube, anything, it's tiny. But because of having pretty much every journalist and every politician in the world on it, it's this disproportionate position in the ecosystem. The way AOC has commanded social media is completely fantastic. You may not agree with her politics, but you have to be impressed with how she's built her personal brand. We've got a lot of people who are using it to build much more pernicious and unpleasant narratives and rhetoric. If you think about how Steve Bannon built his own personal brand using social networks. So everything happens. You just need to find it and see what appeals to you.
The most amazing tools on the internet is actually Twitter, where you're a kind of non-exec director. And I just wondered what your tips were for harnessing the power of it and getting the most out of it.
The reason I first got on Twitter in 2009 was when Gordon Brown asked me to be digital champion. I thought, I don't know anything about this area. I know quite a lot about the internet, but I don't know about the vulnerable communities and all the people doing work in this area. I think thinking about what that use case is for you, for one, when you're using it, is helpful. I use it a lot for news and also just for fun. So I think it's just deciding what it is you're trying to get out of it and being quite laser sharp focused about it. Investigating the tools as well can be helpful. And if you really are spending too much time on it, don't put the notifications on. Don't take your phone into your bedroom. That's my top tips.
I was reading the other day about how Donald Trump couldn't have become president without Twitter and without getting that side of things. And it's just...
You're right, but sorry to interrupt you, but Donald Trump did not have the biggest number of followers of any person on Twitter. 40 million people followed him. Just to give a sense of it, 110 million follow Elon Musk, right? But the reason that Donald Trump got such traction was because every single news channel, every single TV network, every single newspaper wrote about his tweets, right? So it gave this massive distributed effect of everything. So he was very clever because actually the distribution of his tweets was amplified immeasurably by not on the Twitter platform, and I find that kind of fascinating.